I keep my wallet in the top drawer of my nightstand, always have. It's habit, routine. I reached for it that morning to grab my ID before heading to the pharmacy. But the familiar weight felt off. I opened the wallet, checked twice, and then a third time just to be sure. My Excelsior Black Card was gone. My stomach tightened. I don't misplace things. I live alone. The only other person in the house was Bryce, my son, who'd been staying with me just for a few weeks after losing his apartment. I tried not to jump to conclusions. Maybe I had taken it out and forgotten. Maybe I'd used it and left it in a jacket pocket or on the kitchen counter. I searched the house room by room. Nothing. A few hours later, I heard the sharp ding of my phone. Thank you for your purchase. Crown Hotel, Tokyo Bay, 3/240. Then another first-class airfare confirmed, 6th 480D. Then another Cartier, 7/925. I froze. The numbers stacked like bricks in my chest. I clicked into my bank app, trying to breathe slowly. The charges had all been made between 2:13 a.m. and 3:05 a.m. overnight. While I slept just down the hall, I walked into the kitchen and found Bryce casually stirring sugar into his coffee. He smiled at me like nothing had happened, like the floor hadn't just cracked under my feet. I stared at him, messy hair, wrinkled shirt, phone in one hand, and suddenly the house felt unfamiliar, like I had let a stranger in. I didn't say anything. Not yet. I needed to be sure. I needed proof. Because the way he was smiling at me, I already knew he would deny it. He always did. And worse, he'd expect me to believe him. I waited until after lunch. Bryce had left his dishes in the sink. Again, and was sprawled on the couch, scrolling on his phone like the world owed him rest. I sat in the armchair across from him and spoke quietly. Bryce, have you seen my Excelsior card? He didn't look up. No. Why, it's missing. Maybe you lost it, he offered. Voice light. Too casual. You've been forgetting things lately, haven't you? That stung more than I let on. I kept my tone even. There have been a few transactions. Big ones. First-class tickets. A luxury hotel in Tokyo. Cartier. Now he looked up. His eyebrows lifted. Not in surprise, but in performance. Whoa. Sounds like someone's card got hacked. I nodded slowly. The purchases happened between 2 and 3 in the morning. Last night. He laughed. That's wild. You should call the bank. I will, I said. They'll ask about anyone else with access to the card. He stretched, unfazed. Well, it's not me. I studied him then. How easily the lie left his mouth. No hesitation. No guilt. He looked at me the way someone looks at a dull object they no longer value. It wasn't just the missing money. It was the erasure. The arrogance. He stood and walked to the kitchen, humming. I sat frozen, somewhere in the back of my mind. I'd hoped this was all some bizarre mistake, but I'd seen this pattern before. In smaller ways. When he borrowed without asking. When he blamed others for his choices. When he looked me in the eye and made me question what I knew. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, I went online to dig deeper. I typed his girlfriend's name into Instagram. There she was. Tallis Wren. Her latest post was a photo of a luxury suite, champagne in hand, tagged in Tokyo. The caption read, "When your man says you deserve the best, I stared at that Instagram photo until my eyes blurred. The robe, the champagne. She hadn't even tried to hide it. My fingers shook as I set the phone down. I thought of all the things I'd given Bryce. Not just money, not just a roof. Time, health, years I'll never get back. When Marvin died, Bryce was 20. Grief hit us differently. He drifted, dropped out of school, moved between friends' couches. Every time he called, I picked up. Every time he cried, I sent what little I had, I sold the business after his third failed semester, thinking maybe it was me, maybe I was the one holding him back. I remember driving across the state in the middle of the night just to bring him a winter coat. He'd left it behind at his last apartment. I remember mailing checks to cover rent he never actually paid. I remember lying to our neighbors, telling them Bryce was doing just fine. And still, I wanted to believe he'd turn around. After years of instability, he'd finally moved back last month, saying he needed space to reset. I cleaned the guest room. I stocked the fridge with the food he liked. I even canceled a trip with friends so I'd be around to support him. And now this. I closed my eyes and pressed my palms against them, trying to stop the swirl of memory and regret. The past wasn't just catching up. It was shouting in my face. The sound of a door creaking broke the silence. I opened my eyes and watched Bryce walk past the hallway, laughing on the phone. His voice trailed into the kitchen. Light. Carefree. As if nothing in his world had shifted, but mine had. I stood, walked to the kitchen entrance, and leaned quietly against the wall. He didn't see me. He was too busy saying, "She'll calm down. She always does." And with that, something in me cracked and something else began to sharpen. The next morning, I called Marin. I didn't tell her everything over the phone, just that I needed her to come by. She arrived within the hour, clutching a tray of muffins like it was armor. I handed her my phone and scrolled to the post. Tallis. In a hotel tub. Bubbles up to her shoulders. A flute of something expensive in her hand? Tagged in Tokyo. Again, captioned. Cleanse your life of stress and debt. Soft life. Manifesting. Marin's eyebrows rose. That girl's got guts. No, I said, voice flat. She's got my money. We sat in the breakfast nook, surrounded by the ordinary things I'd built with quiet years' curtains I'd sewn. A clock Marvin once repaired. Chairs Bryce had broken and I had fixed. Marin didn't say anything for a long time. Then she asked, "Have you checked his devices?" I hadn't. Not yet. I was still hoping on some small, stupid level that maybe I was wrong. But hope has no business in a house full of evidence. I walked into the living room. Bryce had left his laptop open, as usual. A dozen tabs blinked back at me. Expedia confirmations. Cartier receipts. A full itinerary titled Tallis's Dream Trip. One document was autofilled with my name, address, and credit card info. When he came home later that day, I didn't say a word. I just watched him as he sauntered in with 2 shopping bags and a smug little smirk that made my skin go cold. He tossed the bags near the stairs, walked into the kitchen, and started talking about needing some peace after a rough week. I finally spoke. I saw the receipts. He paused, spoon midair. What receipts? For the hotel, the flights, the gifts. His smile dropped. What the hell are you accusing me of? I'm not accusing, I said. I'm stating. And he snapped. His voice rose. Hands waved. Accusations flew. You're paranoid. You've always tried to control me. Then he stormed out the front door, slamming it so hard the frame trembled. I didn't chase him. I went straight to my bedroom and turned on the camera app. She was standing in the same designer robe I'd seen Bryce order years ago as a joke. And behind her, in the mirror, I saw it, my guest bathroom. My tile, my wall art. The footage took a moment to load. I hadn't touched the app in months, not since the break-in scare down the street convinced me to install the tiny camera above my bedroom door. I never imagined I'd need it for something like this. I scrubbed backward through the night's timeline. The video was grainy, but clear enough. At 1:06 a.m., the hallway light flicked on. Bryce's shadow stretched across the hardwood as he stepped into my room. He moved quietly, deliberately. Not like someone wandering in to check on me, but like someone who knew exactly what he was looking for. He opened my drawer, pulled out my wallet, and crouched beside the bed, My phone was on the nightstand. I saw him lift it, then turn it toward my sleeping face. The screen lit up facial recognition, unlocked it instantly. He tapped quickly, waited, and then looked at my screen again. A soft vibration followed. A second later, he scrolled through my texts. I knew what he was doing, grabbing the security code the bank had sent to authorize a purchase. He typed it in, then he smiled. Not with joy, with satisfaction. A tight, selfish curve of the mouth I didn't recognize. I watched as he slipped the card into his back pocket, stood up, and glanced over his shoulder right into the lens. I paused the video. I sat there for a long time, staring at my reflection in the darkened screen. I wasn't crying. Not yet. Grief takes many forms. And that night, mine looked like silence. I saved the footage, backed it up to a flash drive, and emailed myself a copy. Then I opened the banking app and printed every transaction. I added them to a folder, followed by screenshots of Talas's posts, Bryce's receipts, and my own documentation. By the time I finished, the sun was rising. I hadn't slept. My hands ached. My back throbbed. But everything inside me had gone still. Not numb, ready. I closed the folder, tucked it beneath the coffee table drawer, and stood to make coffee. Because the next step wouldn't require tears. It would require clarity. By midday, I was sitting across from Detective Ayla Hensley at the Financial Crimes Unit downtown. Her desk was neat, her eyes sharp. I placed the folder between us and slid it forward. She took her time, read every page, watched the camera footage twice. I didn't speak while she did. I didn't need to. When she finished, she looked up. "You understand the severity of this?" I nodded. It wasn't a mistake. He knew what he was doing. He used your identity to commit over $18,000 in charges. That's felony-level theft. You have every right to press charges. My stomach twisted. But I said, "I'm aware." She explained my options. Criminal case, civil suit, fraud report to the bank. I took notes. She gave me a case number, then she paused. "You'll need to act fast. Fraud cases don't wait." I thanked her and left, the folder now heavier in my hands, though nothing had changed inside it. That evening, I sat on the back porch with Marin. The sun dipped low over the fence, casting long shadows across the grass. She passed me a glass of lemonade. "Have you told your sisters?" she asked. "No. They'll say I'm being dramatic, that it's just money, but it's not." "No," I said. "It's the lie, the assumption I'll cover it, that I always will." We sat quietly for a moment. Then I opened my phone. Curious. I shouldn't have checked, but I did. Talas had just posted another video. A wide shot of a spa lobby in Kyoto. Her voice purred over soft music. "When your man loves you enough to give you the world, never settle for less." She ended it with a wink. I stared at the screen, my jaw tightening. That girl was bathing in the wreckage of my retirement, and she didn't even know it. Or worse, she didn't care. I stood, walked inside, and opened the drawer. The folder waited, crisp and patient. It was time for him to see what consequences looked like. I invited them both over under the guise of a quiet dinner. Bryce texted back a thumbs-up emoji. Talas sent a heart. I made their favorites: braised short ribs, garlic mashed potatoes, roasted asparagus. I set the table with linen napkins and wine glasses, lit the candles like it was a holiday. I wore the blouse Marvin used to say made me look serious but unshakable. They arrived 20 minutes late. Talas walked in first, full of perfume and entitlement, snapping a quick selfie by the mirror. Bryce trailed behind, eyes darting, then settling into practiced charm. "Wow. Mom? You really went all out," he said. Dropping his phone on the table without looking at me, I smiled politely. It felt like the right night for something formal. We ate in near silence. Talis talked about Tokyo, how clean the subways were, how she deserved a break from the haters. Bryce nodded along, pretending none of this was absurd. I poured wine. I listened. I waited. When the plates were cleared, I stood up and retrieved the folder. I laid it on the table like a second dessert. Talis's voice trailed off as I slid the first page forward, a printout of the Cartier receipt. Billed to my name. Then the email confirmation from the Crown Hotel, followed by a screenshot of her tub photo caption, circled. Bryce's eyes darkened. What is this? I didn't answer. I simply placed the final item on top, a still frame from the video. Him. In my bedroom, holding my phone. The timestamp glowed at the bottom corner. 1:06 a.m. Talis went pale. Her hand trembled as she reached for her bag. You used her card, she asked, voice sharp. Bryce stared at the image, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. It's not. That's not. You can't prove I can, I said, calm as stone. Would you like to see the full video? He stood suddenly, knocking his chair over. You're unbelievable. No, I said. I'm finished. And for the first time, I meant it. Talis left first. She didn't say goodbye, didn't even look at me. She grabbed her handbag, muttered something under her breath, and stormed out the door, heels clicking across the floor like punctuation. The perfume she left behind clung to the hallway, cheap sweetness masking something rotten. Bryce stayed, pacing. I didn't mean for it to go that far, he said finally, voice shaking. It was just supposed to be temporary. I folded my arms. You stole from me. That's not temporary. That's deliberate. He rubbed his hands over his face. I was going to pay it back. I was just waiting on some things to come through. What things he didn't answer. Instead, he sank into the chair he'd knocked over earlier, eyes glassy. You reported it, didn't you? I didn't respond. The silence was answer enough. His jaw clenched. You'd really do that to your own son. I leaned forward. You did this to yourself. Bryce, actions have consequences. I won't protect you from them anymore. He looked like he wanted to cry, or yell, or both. But nothing came. Just the weight of it all crashing in around him. I'll be disqualified from everything. He whispered. Jobs. Apartments. Loans. You should have thought of that before you typed in my bank details at 2 a.m. He stood again. This time slowly. No fury left in him. Only the dull echo of pride. Fine, he said. If I'm that disposable to you, I'll go. I never said you were disposable. I said. But you are accountable. He walked toward the door, dragging his suitcase behind him, the one I bought for his college move-in day. He paused on the porch. For a second, I thought he might turn back, might say something real. He didn't. The door clicked shut behind him. I didn't cry. Instead, I walked to the dining table, collected the papers, tucked them back into the folder. First thing tomorrow, I'd be meeting with the district attorney's office. The courthouse building was cold and beige, like it had forgotten how to feel anything. I sat in a quiet office across from the assistant district attorney, a woman named Marcy Bell, who didn't blink as I laid out my file. She flipped through the receipts, the screenshots, the stills from the footage. When she looked up, her expression was firm, but not unkind. You've documented everything. We can file this as felony identity theft and unauthorized use of a financial instrument. You'll have to testify if it goes to trial. I understand. I said, outside the window. A bus hissed to a stop. The world was still turning. Over the next week, I received a dozen phone calls from Bryce. I didn't answer. Then came the messages. Voice memos. Angry at first. Then apologetic. Then desperate. I listened to none of them. Instead, I filed the official fraud complaint with the bank and signed the affidavit for charges to proceed. The hardest part wasn't the paperwork. It was the silence from people who used to know me. A cousin emailed me, "Is it true? You're pressing charges against your own son?" A neighbor stopped me at the mailbox and gently asked if I was doing okay, then followed it with, "I mean, he's your only child, right?" As if that excused everything. But Marin came by with groceries and firm hugs. And one afternoon, Olivia Bryce's old high school friend left a note in my mailbox. It read, "He stole from my parents once too. You're not the only one who's had to draw a line." I kept that note in the kitchen drawer, folded neatly beside the bank statements. Bryce was officially charged 2 weeks later. The arraignment was quiet. He looked smaller than I remembered in the courtroom, dressed in a blazer I once bought him for a job interview he never went to. He didn't look at me, and I didn't flinch. That night, I made tea, sat on the porch, and watched the wind move through the trees. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. Thanksgiving came quiet that year. No long table. No turkey carved in front of a crowd. Just me, Marin, and 2 neighbors from down the street who'd recently lost their mother. We shared roasted squash, apple pie, and stories that didn't sting. It wasn't until the Sunday after the holiday that I heard the knock. I opened the door to find Bryce standing there, thinner than I remembered, holding a manila envelope and wearing the same coat he'd left in creased, fraying at the collar. His eyes didn't meet mine right away. "I paid back the full amount," he said, voice low, with interest. "It's all in their receipts. Bank confirmation. The last payment cleared on Friday." I nodded once. I already knew. The bank had notified me 2 days ago. I'd read the statement in silence, heart steady. Money returned wasn't the same as trust restored, but it was a start. He shifted his weight. "I've been in counseling, part of the probation terms. But I'm staying. Even after I waited. I've also been volunteering 200 hours of community work. I hate every minute of it," he said with a half laugh. "But I know that's the point." He looked up then, eyes red, but steady. "What I did, it wasn't just theft. It was betrayal. I knew exactly what I was doing. I just counted on you never fighting back. I didn't speak. I let the silence stretch. I needed to see that line," he said, "and I'm sorry it had to come from you being the one to draw it." For the first time, I saw something unfamiliar in his face. Humility. I stepped aside, let him in. He didn't ask to stay long, just sat on the couch. The same one he used to sprawl across like a prince. He kept his hands folded, shoulders tight. Before he left, he turned to me. "You didn't give up on me," he said. "You just finally stopped protecting me from myself." I walked him to the door. Didn't hug him, didn't cry, but I nodded. After he left, I sat with the envelope in my lap, the late autumn light fading across the living room. Peace, I realized, doesn't always come with a ribbon. Sometimes it comes with a boundary no one dares cross again.